Mic test 1, 2. So a question I get asked a lot when I post footage of me playing Oro in Street Fighter 3 is why I pick each super for each matchup. So, everyone loves tier list content. This isn't a tier list per se, but it's just going to be me explaining which characters I pick each super for, and then why I pick those supers for those characters, and that way we can kind of put the issue to rest, and I can just link this video um, whenever someone asks me. It's going to be relatively unscripted. I'm just going to be talking off the top of my head, but I do know quite a lot about this, more than the typical person, as an Oro main myself. Um, I am going to be exaggerating the differences a bit. Obviously, you want to pick the better one in every matchup. If one of them is like 1% better than the other, you'll pick the one that's 1% better. But realistically, you could put the entire cast of Street Fighter 3 into the middle one here. Because you could actually do cross-up unblockable loops with SA2, the Booger Super, against every character in the game. And you can actually do like corner pressure with 3-stone Tengu or infinite juggles with 5-stone Tengu against every character in the game. And there are setups against every character in the game for both of them, like stand strong 2 hits into stand strong 1 hit into Yaki Otama is unblockable setup on the whole cast. So you can do unblockables on everyone. But there are little things about each character that make both of the supers slightly better. Well, one of them slightly better than the other in most instances. So I'm just going to break it down on a character by character basis and talk about what my decision making process is and why I pick it the way I do. Now, probably it's convenient that he's also the first alphabetically, but one of the clearest decisions people often talk about is Akuma into Super 3. And the main reason people usually suggest this, and I think it's probably usually correct, is he has teleports to get out of unblockable setups. And you can use super cancels to stop Akuma's teleports, but you can't do that while doing unblockable setups, obviously. So even if your setup is perfect, he can just kind of get out of there. And maybe you can chase him down, but it just doesn't justify the cost of the setup. Not only that, but when you're running Super 3 against him, you basically just murder him if you ever get 5-stone juggle. It does like 70% of his health. And that's both of these things together make it pretty easy to say SA3 is generally better in this matchup. The other one I like to say Super 3 is better is against the twins. And the main reason for that is that you can't do your typical chicken combos against them. The big thing about your Super 2 loops is that you can do the chicken combo between the Super 2 loops and get a lot of your meter back because it constantly resets the combo count. So it's like a new combo. You get a very high meter from using chicken combo, and then it sets up the unblockable, and then you get another chicken combo, so on. Traditional chicken combos do not work against the twins. It's technically possible to do a few against them, but they either require last frame cancels or mid-air connect and very specific spacing. So because of that, it's very difficult. You've got to do shortened loops against them. You've either got to do the stay medium kick Oniyama super cancel and then not get a hit of the super, which means the twins can quick stand. So you have to be able to adapt your setup to whether the twins quick stand or not. Or you've got to do very, very short loops like unblockable into stand strong 2 hits into stand strong 1 hit into super. And those will build very little meter. So typically you can actually get you only need like you need at least a bar to start a Super 2 loop, obviously to do your Super 2. But you only lose about like maybe 20-30% of a bar for each loop. So you can like start with a bar and a half and often nearly kill a character with just that. But for twins, you need a lot more meter starting, and it's actually very difficult to build meter against twins because again, you can't land chicken combo against them. So even if you get nice parries in neutral or something like that, usually you just don't have that much meter to play with in that matchup compared to other matchups. So for that reason, I think it is possible to run Super 2 versus Twins, and at the absolute highest level, there are some people who would maybe put it as high as here for the Twins. I don't think I would ever... again, they're low health characters, and Super 3 will just murder them if you ever get the EX Tengu Stone after a launcher. And not only that, but unlike Akuma, they actually can't teleport out of Tengu Stone pressure in the corner, so that's very strong against them. It's just easy to make SA3 count, and SA2 is just too expensive. On the other side of the board, I'm doing the most obvious characters first, the ones that are the hardest to dispute. Hugo in Always Recommend SA2. He's going to be the only one in this category, actually. Um, Super 2 is you have to make really big commitments to get out of it as a Hugo player. The absolute easiest way to get out of it is to, if Oro just does it in neutral, is to EX clap it, and that removes 3 of the hits, and you just eat the last hit, but you don't get unblockable. Not only can Oro technically hit you during that, but it costs a meter, and if you're running SA1 Hugo, for example, you have to take away your own threat of Gigas Breaker. It's very easy for Oro to get up Super in neutral, and every single way Hugo has of getting around Super, for example, shoot down backbreaker over it, jump and parry over it, trying to hit Oro coming in. Every single way he has to get around it is extremely committal and bad. So Oro can just put up the supers and just put Hugo into very awkward scenarios. And then you can jump over Hugo in the corner. So if you ever have a cornered Hugo, you can get very easy cross-up unblockables against him that then lead to Super 2 loops. The Super 2 loops are kind of hard against Hugo. You don't do the typical ones because he doesn't work in a typical juggle, but you can get a unique chicken juggle that is set up by his unblockables, so it doesn't matter that much. But SA2, the extra meter is really useful, and then also the Super is good in neutral, and it's the best in neutral of any matchup. So I do think Super 2 is really strong in this matchup. Kind of a consistent theme you'll be hearing during a lot of these explanations is if you can jump over an opponent in the corner, that makes Super 2 a lot better. That's a huge edge for Super 2. A lot of characters Oro can't jump over in the corner, some he can. And anytime you can jump over the opponent, you can do cross-up medium kick as the Super's pushing them into the corner, and you get a very easy, very reliable, blockable setup, which you can then convert into a loop. Alright, let's just go through this alphabetically from here on out, I think. Alex, I'm going to chuck into Super 2 has slight advantages. He is another character where Super 2 in neutral is a thing you can do. If he's just sitting on charge, you can either do a light fireball into Super or a medium or heavy fireball into Super, and he can actually either EX slash elbow you or EX stomp you, regardless of where he is on the screen, depending on which of your fireball it was. It'll counter hit your Super, and it'll ignore the fireball. Just has to react to which one you did. And if you do no fireball before Super, he can just do either one of those to stuff your Super in its startup. But that's if Alex is sitting on charge, which he often won't be. Apart from that, you can get up Super in neutral pretty easily. You can jump over Alex in the corner, and the extra meter is very nice. And you can use heavy Super versus Alex, which means you actually don't need that much screen position to play with. So Oro's Super loop is actually a mid-screen loop, which means that if you're got the opponent right in the corner, you actually can't do an unblockable setup on them. You've got to do something else. You've got to do like a high-low mix-up or something. Alex is, you can do a chicken combo variation on him that uncorners him, though, so you can actually start your unblockable loops. If you're fully in the corner, you can do a heavy stomp and then get unblockable loops mid-screen because your stomp crosses up and you can still continue the chicken combo. There are a few characters like that. So basically, Super 2 has easy unblockables against him. You don't need that much screen position to start them. Tengu Stones, there's nothing wrong with it. He's quite wide, so you can actually do cross-up unblockables with SA3 pretty easily. But SA2 is very easy to use against Alex, mostly because it's fairly easy to get it up. Chun-Li, it's tempting for me to put her in. Both are equally viable. This is one of the harder ones. I think this is probably the single hardest one for me to place. I'm going to put her here. This is my opinion. I think at the top level, you see Oro players pick either Super against her. It's considered to be Oro's hardest matchup. One of the annoying things about Chun-Li is that you actually get too many bounces. You get like 3 bounces off of light or off of medium and heavy Super, and that means you can't get unblockables off of those. So for Chun-Li in particular, you actually have to do light Super against her, and that requires a lot of screen position. You have to basically almost be cornered when you start your SA2 loops, or else you won't be able to get unblockables against her. And that's possible, but it's just a pain that you have to do it from such restrictive starters. It's like a Makoto having to start her Karakusa combos when she's cornered, that kind of thing. Technically it's in your control, but it's also, in a lot of ways, not in your control. Not only that, but Super 3 actually has Touch of Dizzy on a Chun-Li when she's cornered. So not only does Super 3 do its regular 60% damage or whatever in your mid-screen regular juggles, but you can actually just kill her if you have a combo that hits the corner. And that's very useful. You can get basically a reset into EX Super and then only the stand hard kick to connect, and none of the stones, and you get full unscaled stand hard kicks over and over. And it's a touch of Dizzy on Chun-Li, which then turns into a touch of death. So I think that also about Chun-Li, I mean, both supers are kind of like if you land them, you win for Oro, and particularly in this matchup where SA3 actually just kills on contact. So it's just, do you want to be able to kill on contact when you have Chun-Li cornered, or do you want to be able to kill on contact when you have Chun-Li mid-screen? But the difference is that you still get a lot of mileage out of mid-screen Super 3, but you don't actually get that much mileage out of corner Super 2. So that's the decision-making process for me for that matchup. Plus the Touch of Dizzy combo is just really fun to hit. That Touch of Dizzy combo also works against Elena and Q. And both of those characters don't require Light Super. I don't even remember my loops versus Q. Oro just murders Q in the matchup. I always pick Super 3 just because it's, I don't know, it's just so dominant. You don't need to like play well against Q players, and you'll still beat them as an Oro player. Both of these characters, though, if you get the corner setup, you just win on the spot. But unlike Chun-Li, you can actually get your unblockable setups a little bit easier. Or at least Elena, you can get your unblockable setups a little bit easier. Q, it's a little bit funny because he's very tall and very narrow, which makes cross-ups actually a little difficult against him. But I couldn't sincerely tell you if they're easy or hard against him because I haven't done them in so long. But just the very high payout of Super 3, especially because it's actually very likely that you hit the corner with it because the corner carry on Oro's combos is very high. And it's a very difficult setup to actually parry out of, too, because you don't need just one parry to hit the ground, you need a bunch. It's not even that you just parry the one stone that resets you. You also have to parry Oro's repeated hard kicks after that. Or his fireballs, or whatever else he can do. He can actually react to the opponent trying to parry out. Dudley. Dudley, you can jump over in the corner. It's a little hard to get up a Super 2 in neutral against Dudley because he does have that ducking super or ducking straight or whatever. He can just kind of rapidly approach you, and he can ignore your fireballs with ducking, so fireball to super is also not super great in this matchup. You have the easiest unblockable setups of anyone in the game versus Dudley. You can use the heavy super, and it almost always only gets one hit. Only very situationally can you get a hit where it bounces twice. It requires a very specific height. And because you can use heavy super, the setups are very easy because you push Dudley almost not at all. You just walk into him a little bit, and then you've got your unblockable setup. And also it requires almost no screen space to do. You can do it with only a quarter of the screen total, which means it works in almost every scenario you can think of. If you land a close medium punch, you get a Super 2 loop. And that just makes Super 2 really easy and really brainless against him. Of course, you can pick stones against him. There's nothing bad about it, but Super 2 is just very, very free in that matchup. Ibuki. I like her in Super 3. There's a few reasons for this. Ibuki's kind of unique. A few characters have a move that's frame 1 airborne. Ibuki has several of them. Her taunt, her Kazakiri, I think her Hien, and then I think something else. I think her DP plus punch and her reverse DP plus kick are all frame 1 airborne. She's got like 4 different frame 1 airborne moves, I think. And the thing about that is that if you do a frame 1 airborne move during an unblockable setup, you flip out of the unblockable. Well, you get hit by the super, so you don't flip out. You're not air reset. But you eat all 4 hits at the Super 3 or at the Super 2 midair, and because of that, you consume 4 of the juggle points that Oro is going to use for his chicken combo. So Oro gets next to no meter build, and he can immediately hit you with stand strong into another super and get an unblockable like that, but he gets basically no damage and no meter build. And not only that, but he'll probably be doing, if he's attempting to do his unblockable against you, he'll probably be hitting you with like a cross-up medium kick or something like that. And so Ibuki will get hit by the first hit of super and the other 2 hits of super from the unblockable starter. And then also Oro's air normal, the jump medium kick, and that will do 3 points of juggle potential to her, 3 JP. And she'll just be immune. She'll just, from those 6 hits, she'll be invincible to Oro's stand medium punch, so he won't be able to get another unblockable from that. So basically, frame 1 airborne stuff is a good way of killing unblockable loops, and Ibuki has the best frame 1 airborne stuff of any character in the game. Not only that, but she's another low health character where if you land SA3 against her, you basically just murder her. So I think SA3 is more consistent in that matchup. Also, SA2, you can't jump over Ibuki in the corner. So SA2 corner setups don't exist. So SA2 in neutral is not very good in this matchup either. Ken, I'll just do all the Shotos together since they're all in the same spot. They're all here. They don't require. They only need medium super. You can't jump over them in the corner, but it's fairly common against them to get stand strong in a scenario where you can get your loop. Most of the time, your loop is available. For Ken in particular, he's got a really wide stage, but just all three of them, you don't need that much space. And the kinds of positions you'll typically be at versus these characters mean that your stand strong will typically lead to, at the very least, a cool little corner reset, but typically a full unblockable loop. And then Aura really appreciates being able to kill these characters reliably. They don't have great things to do while being unblockable. It's difficult for them to have a clean escape. You could honestly put them in the middle tier if you wanted. You could definitely run stones against all three of them, but unblockables are perfectly serviceable against Shotos, and being able to kill on a touch is just too valuable. Makoto is another character that requires light super, so she needs a ton of screen position in order to get an unblockable working. This is a kind of funny one. It's kind of a push and pull matchup, because when Makoto's cornered, she can get her Super 2 stuff, but when Aura's cornered, he can get his Super 2 stuff. So both characters kind of want to land their hits when they got their back to the wall, which is kind of strange. But of course, Oro can pick Super 3 and Makoto can pick Super 1. Makoto has another kind of a flip situation where both of her supers are equally viable against Oro. So there's a lot of different permutations to the way that match can play out. But light super is very inconvenient. But Super 1 is still, I mean, Super 2 is still very nice for being able to kill Makoto. She has a really long wake up time. And she again doesn't have good escapes once she's in the mix. She's just got to keep holding it over and over. Got to parry her way out. Super 3 doesn't kill on a touch or anything. It only does like 50-60% to her. So, you either have the super... And it's not too hard to build meter in this matchup, honestly, because Makoto's frequently unsafe. It's just the way you have to play her. She's a risk-taking kind of character. So you get an excess of meter, which means an excess of Super 2 opportunities, I guess. Necro... I used to put him in here, but now I think he's probably over here. You do have... If it's SA3 Necro, he can hit you if you try and do Super 2 in neutral, but SA1 Necro can't. But it costs meter, and it's not amazing for him. He doesn't get like a ton of payout for it. And you can get it up on like knockdowns or certain setups where it's not even possible for him to do that. But even regardless of that, you can use heavy super setups versus Necro, or at the very least medium ones. Heavy ones get 2 bounces reliably, but you can still get good unblockables versus Necro, even if he bounces twice. And I think medium super he bounces once, which is the ideal for Oro. And then you can cross him up in the corner. So you don't need much space, and you can use Super 2 in neutral, and both of those things are really nice. But Super 3 is kind of just more reliable and consistent. Honestly, I could maybe put him up higher. I've been playing with Super 3 in this matchup, and I just find it to be a lot more reliable in how it works. Super 3 is always more reliable than Super 2, I feel, but it has lower highs in addition to higher lows. And I think Oro, if you want to be playing a truly top-tier character with Oro, you've got to really push the ability to land his Super 2 as much as possible. That's the thing that makes him a theoretical top-tier character, is the Super 2 loop. Oro is another... Oh, I didn't mention that. Necro has a frame 1 airborne attack. He can do reversal, half circle back punch, and that's frame 1 airborne, so he can actually get out of unblockable setups too. It's kind of difficult, but he can do it. And Oro can also do that. So for both of those characters, there's just a reliable escape to his... I wouldn't call it reliable, people drop it all the time, but there is an escape to the unblockable loop. And you commit to taking some damage, but the damage is really not too bad, all things considered. It's better you don't eat the super. Don't eat the loops, rather. It's better to eat the super, not eat the loops. Oro, you can also use medium super. Works fine. Light super is a little bit more consistent, but you can use actually any super versus Oro and still get unblockables. The fact that he has a Super 2 escape is really the only main considering factor. Everything else is just he kind of reacts to the supers in the way that you would predict any character to react to them. Remy, I'm going to put here. Remy, you can't jump over in the corner, so you don't have any kind of SA2 in neutral kind of play. He dies if you hit him with one Tengu. It's not that he has low health, it's that he has low dizzy. So Tengu Stone, any chicken combo into like a Tengu Stone setup, you can get like 70% of his Dizzy bar, and then if you just get like an errant like he actually has touch of Dizzy combos in the corner, and actually so does Necro, and actually so does Ibuki, but they're a lot harder to do than your typical ones. But Remy's are not that hard, and there's some other high Dizzy options that Remy has that you have against Remy rather, and his very short stun bar means that it's just very possible to just land a super and then have one mix up to win, or maybe land your one mix up and then land a super to win. So it's his low tolerance to Dizzy that really is the difference maker, I think. And it's very common to corner Remy. That's a really big factor. Is that Remy's gonna spend in the Oro Remy matchup? Remy spends a lot of the time in the corner, and you don't get good returns from Super 2 in the corner because you can't do side switch chicken combos and you can't jump over Remy. So he's just trapped in the corner. It's like that for Q as well, by the way. You also can't jump over Q in the corner. I think I forgot to mention that with him. You also can't jump over Ibuki. You also can't jump over Chun-Li or Elena. Who else? 12. I put 12 here. He might be both are equally viable. It's hard to say. It's very easy to throw an upward fireball in the 12 matchup and have it hit him. When 12's doing his air dash stuff, it's just very... 12 has to really commit to nothing in order to be able to parry fireballs. And 12 sticking to the ground is just not as good of a character as 12 in the air. So he wants to be able to zip around, and he's committing to eating those fireballs occasionally. But an anti-air fireball into Super 2 is very easy to land in that matchup, and then you can jump over 12 and get unblockable mix-ups. So that's very strong. And then you can use Heavy Super against 12. Medium Super a little bit more consistent, but Heavy Super works, and that requires very low screen positioning, so that's very helpful. So you got Super 2 in neutral, which is good. You've got Touch of Death off of Super 2, as long as you've got some meter, which is good. And then you've got fairly easy setups. And you don't need that much screen position. Last one is Urien. I classically put Urien here. If Urien can put a mirror right on you, and then get his immediate pressure, but it doesn't last that long. He just gets 1.5 mix-ups, basically. He can get you with his initial low overhead, or he can... If that doesn't pan out, he can do another low overhead, but the second low overhead doesn't lead to anything. Or he can actually do a mirror right in front of you and then make that last a really long time because it just sits there and the hits aren't being consumed because you're not blocking them, and then he just makes you block mix-ups over and over, throws lows and overheads. And the thing about that, the reason I'm bringing that up, is you can actually activate Tengu Stones and then just hit the mirror and it's destroyed. So Oro with Tengu Stones actually has a little bit of an immunity to some of Urien's mix-ups with Tengu Stones. And not only that, but... Urien can actually put up his mirror on an incoming super, incoming Yagi-Odama, and bounce it back. His mirror does bounce back Oro Super 2. And that makes Super neutral not bad versus Urien, but it makes it so you don't get your corner unblockables because he can just deny it with his super use. The thing is, Oro's meter is less precious than Urien's. So you'll see me when I play that matchup, I get Urien cornered, and then I do my Super 2 and try and follow it in, because if he doesn't do a mirror, I've got a very good chance of opening him up with an unblockable or an anti-air or something like that. Air to air. And if he does do the mirror, I will happily sacrifice one of my Super 2s to remove one of his Super 3s. It sounds really strange, but that's actually a very good trade for me. Urien's meter is a lot more precious than Oro's. So if we can deduct... And also my super meter is shorter than his. So if we can deduct 1 bar each, that's actually a good trade. For me. But apart from that, he needs light super, which is a pain, requires a ton of screen position. But you do have the side swap chicken combos, so you can have a corner starter and still get mid-screen unblockables, which is nice. And then from there, you can get chicken loops. You can get your full unblockable loops. So it has some utility in neutral because removing Urien's meters is very nice. The extra EX is nice in that matchup because EX Fireball is quite strong versus Urien. His movement is a little bit awkward, and it interacts favorably with a lot of his pokes. Like if you throw an EX Fireball as he hits a button, there's a good chance it's going to hit him compared to other characters, I guess. Or like if he jumps right then, it's a good chance he's going to be dealing with a difficult mix-up because he jumps so high. Overall, it's pretty good against him. Actually, this is the whole cast, by the way, so here's my breakdown. If you want to know which supers I pick against which character, this is usually what I'm operating with. And I break the rules a little bit, too. I could have had an extra little tier here. I mentioned it recently. For Super 1. Super 1 is worse than Super 2 and Super 3 in like 99.9% of cases, but there is one thing it does that the other two supers can't do, and that's jump through Denshin Hadoken. So if Ryu does a Denshin reset on you, you can just EX Super 1 through it, and that's actually kind of cool in that matchup. But again, that would be a separate tier for Super 1, only versus Denshin Ryu, and you would also be sacrificing your unblockables and your Tengu Stone juggles, so, you know. Overall, it's not worth having its own little spot just for Denshin Ryu, and it's not even really worth picking even against Denshin Ryu. But it is the only other thing that's not represented on this chart that I would maybe bring up. Anyway, that's my little breakdown for why I pick each super for each character.